Are you tired of websites that have been Frankenstein together?
Oh, my website is so slow and creaky.
Every time I use the search bar, it just returns Abby Normal over and over again.
Becky's sister company, the Concept Spot, holds the secret to life itself and can create new life from nothing. In fact, we've been giving life to highly functional websites for the last 25 years using premium parts we swear we didn't salvage from graveyards.
Ooh, check out that header image. Instead of going, my new website purrs.
Need a blog? The Concept Spot can do that. Want an online store? We can do that too.
We build our sites from the cellular level. No reused templates or discarded body parts here, so we can make your site do whatever you want and look however you want.
It's gorgeous! I can't even see the stitches.
We can also resurrect your dead website if rigor mortis has set in.
Oh, it's like a new man.
If you think Homespun Haints is frighteningly genius, you should see our websites. Let your favorite ghoulish gals, Becky and Diana, build you a monstrous website that will wreak havoc on the internet for years to come.
Visit theconceptspot.com for more information.
It's live! It's live! If you grew up in a small town in the deep south, then you already know that the sweet tea is meant to be spilled, and the ghosts outnumber the living. Our guest today is the host of Tombigbee Tales, a podcast that exposes the uncomfortable truths of the residents of Columbus, Mississippi. And living in Mississippi, she's seen quite a few ghosts, and felt them, smelt them, heard them, and even pissed some of them off, because this woman isn't afraid of anything. Hear Shannon's stories today on Homespun Haints. Hello, Hainted Loves. Welcome to Homespun Haints. I'm Becky.
I'm Diana.
Today on the show, we have fellow podcaster Shannon Evans, who loves to dig up the dirt on people who are not above board with how they spend taxpayer dollars.
She's a watchdog. She is an oversight committee of one. She is the Possum City whistleblower.
She is from Columbus, Mississippi. I really like what she does. She's an investigative journalist at a very local level. And, of course, she's not afraid of anything, not even ghosts. Because, as you know, we're in the South. There's ghost stories.
There's just ghosts.
Something else I wanted to bring up, in case you guys weren't aware, it is February, at least at the time of this recording. The middle of the month is the time for love.
I can't say I love the middle of February.
Which is maybe why there is this nice holiday in there called Valentine's Day. Or maybe not so nice, depending on your disposition. Some people really, really get upset by this day. I was at orchestra rehearsal last night. I volunteer with a local orchestra, and we rehearse in a Lutheran church. And so I'm wandering down the halls after rehearsal to go to the bathroom. And the whole place smells like Jesus. You know, it's like a combination of antiseptic and guilt. And I walk into the bathroom, the women's bathroom, and I'm sitting there doing my business, reading the Stall Street Journal that they have there in the bathroom. And
Why would somebody write on the stalls?
no, they actually have a little newsletter they put up in the stalls called the Stall Street Journal.
What?
Yeah.
I thought you meant just like people's little like Joey loves Dave or whatever.
No, nobody's going to deface. No, there's no graffiti in the bathroom. Gosh.
Really? So there's an actual publication in the bathroom of this church. Okay.
And they had a little section called Of the Birds and the Bees. Very appropriate for a church. And they mentioned, they were like, hey, did you know that St. Valentine is the patron saint of beekeepers? And I was like, holy crap, I gotta do some digging into this. What the hell? That's not the only thing that he's the patron saint of.
Let me guess.
What?
So I'm guessing things that pierce, because we've got Cupid's arrow, and we've got bee stingers. What else causes piercing damage?
Maybe just think damage.
Of sparring? Of
No.
fencing? Of stabbing?
No.
Pretending to stab somebody with a fake knife. Is there a patron saint of that? I bet there is. Patron saint
Stage
for everything.
knives that like collapse when
Of stage. That's who the actors pray to. Let's see. So what else could he be the patron saint of? What else does piercing damage? Oh, piercings, like Claire's?
No. Just stop with the piercing. Just think of damage. Okay, just think of
Damage. Just any damage type.
really bad damage.
Bludgeoning, fire,
Think bigger.
flood.
I'm gonna give it to you. Keeping away plague.
Plague. That's a damage type. Indeed. So that's good. Bees don't cause plagues, do they?
No, locusts
I think bees
are
can
a plague,
bring a plague.
but no, bees, I mean, I guess if they like clog up your mouth and your eyes, they could kill
Ew.
you. Just like flies can if you're a
Why would they
particularly
do
bad
that?
person. They don't, but I mean, this is why we stuff all those Valentines into those stupid shoe boxes when we're little, is to keep the bees from choking us with plague.
I accept your premise.
Of course, as you can imagine, he's got a lot of relics.
Oh, where are they?
Oh, they're all over the world, right?
Of course.
There's a shrine of St. Valentine in Dublin, which has a bunch of his relics. He's got 2 skulls. One is in... Because this is the way relics work, right?
Yeah, I'm here with an open mind, so okay. Tell me more.
One's in Poland. Well, it's like just a part of his skull. And then the whole skull is in Rome. Let me send this to you so you can take a look.
Is it bedazzled?
Yeah, actually, in a way. Just in case you didn't know who it was, it has his name in like tape on the top of the forehead.
It's somebody took a label maker and just put St. Valentine. Now that is a tooth gap to rival Madonna.
I know.
That is amazing.
Fun fact, in the 14th century, a tooth cap was considered a sign of sexuality.
Really? Why is that?
I don't know.
Maybe that's the Valentine's connection.
Maybe. When you read Chaucer and the Wife of Bath, that, you know, she had like 7 husbands or something. That is one of her traits, is she has this gap tooth. And it's supposed to be a sign of she's banged a lot of men. So
Okay.
have you read Chaucer?
No.
You are missing out on some steamy shit, girl. Gosh. I just wanted to share that in case you were wondering what to get your Valentine this year and you don't want to get them.
Chaucer. Bees. I think bees. Bees is a great
Just
gift.
get bees, yeah. Put them in a jar. Or bring him part of a saint. Have you ever seen a relic, Diana? Have you ever seen a Catholic relic?
I have. Yes, I was in whatever they've got at St. Peter's Basilica and
A lot.
yeah, and a church in Munich that I went to that had some relics that we got to see, but yeah, I don't remember faces like that.
The one that really stuck out to me was the heart of St. Lawrence O'Toole in Christchurch in Dublin.
Cool.
He has his own little like alcove, and there on a stand, locked in a heart-shaped box,
How many weeks has it been?
the heart of Lawrence O'Toole. I'll send you a photo of this too, because this is really fascinating. Because it's like it's weird. It's an iron box.
Aw, that is cute. It's romantic. I like its chastity belt.
It also has a little bit of a torrid history. The heart went missing about 13 years ago. They didn't take anything else. The church, all this like expensive stuff. I mean, it's a gorgeous church. They didn't take anything but this heart. The rumor is that the thieves who stole the heart thought that it was cursed.
Oh no.
And some people that were close to them began to die, kind of like after they opened the tomb of Tutankhamun. And they were like, oh, okay. And get this, guess what they were dying of?
Plague.
Heart attacks.
All right. The story is coming full circle.
Right.
I like it.
So they tipped off the police who came, got the heart. This is in 2018. Returned the heart in its heart.
They tipped off the police on themselves?
Yeah. Because
I heard a rumor that I stole a relic from a church.
Well, I think they kind of like, it'll be, under the bridge at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, that kind of thing.
So did they ever admit to why they stole it? Like,
Nope.
were they going to ransom it? Were they just like hoarding it?
Don't know who they were. So anyway, that's not St. Valentine. That's Lawrence O'Toole. But I just thought it was kind of a fun, we're talking about relics and stuff and
Love.
And what better way to represent. So that's something I would not suggest you do if you're looking for a great Valentine's Day gift for your lover, is do not steal a heart.
Steal a heart.
From a saint.
Locked inside a heart-shaped box.
For weeks.
You know what people do want for Valentine's Day? They want to join Homespun Haints Patreon at patreon.com/homespunhaints so that they can get all these episodes ad-free, plus they can get special perks throughout the year, like
extra content, book club. We're going to have to be doing some tarot readings coming up soon.
That's true.
All sorts of fun things for our patrons, as well as just being part of a cool community. So if you are a member of our Patreon, thank you so much. And if you're not yet a member of our Patreon,
enjoy this commercial.
Oh man, I had a rough day.
What happened, honey?
I was out with the guys and they said I wasn't spooky enough.
Oh, honey, how could they say that to you? You're hella spooky.
You think so?
Of course. After all, you came up with the ectoplasm being ghost jizz theory, and you've been scratched by more horny ghosts than anyone else I know.
Well, I suppose you're right.
But if you're really worried about it, I have just the thing.
Oh, wow! A Spooky AF t-shirt?
That's right. Our Spooky AF line comes in shirt, sweatshirt, pillow, and even a high-quality mug.
Man, those are super awesome, especially for something with profanity on it.
What's even better, all these items were hand-lettered exclusively from Homespun Haints by world-renowned calligrapher Nikki Malik.
Holy ghostly cannoli, that's amazing.
From now on, whenever you brandish your Spooky AF gear, no one will accuse you of being boring.
Yeah, I'm Spooky AF.
Visit homespunhaints.com for all Spooky AF merchandise.
Today on the show, we are so thrilled to bring on Shannon Evans. She is another podcaster. You're going to be so fascinated when you hear about what she does. She is the creator of Tombigbee Tales. I have to say that slowly. It's a little bit of a tongue twister for me, which is it started out about the town that she is from in Mississippi. And I'm going to let her tell you how it got started because it's kind of a funny story. So
Okay.
welcome to the show, Shannon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I went to an event it was a Juneteenth parade in Columbus. We have a building called the Tennessee Williams Building. It's the birthplace of Tennessee Williams. His grandfather was the rector of the Episcopal Church here. This director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau was sitting on the front porch, and I saw she was sitting with a very, very old family friend that I have known since I was a small child. And so I went up on the porch to talk to this woman and to my parents' family friend. And the family friend she's quite frail and she's a super senior. And this woman clearly did not want, this director of this organization didn't want me talking to this woman. And I thought, well, that's the weirdest damn thing I've ever heard. And I thought, what? It's a small town. We're only about, 25,000 people here. We're not a big town. Nobody talks to me like that. So
Right.
She gets up, she guides the woman inside, and she slams the door shut.
So you came back to this town? You hadn't been there in a while?
I hadn't been there in a while. The woman knew me. She knew my voice. She knew who I was, the family friend. I mean, this person was so close that at one point when my mother was quite ill and had to go for treatments out of town, I spent like most of a summer living in their home. I mean, these are not like, people we knew in passing. These were people we knew very well.
Right. And she just didn't want you talking to her.
There was this manipulation thing going on, and I thought, well, it made me, one, angry, and two, put antenna go up, and you think about it. Well, come to find out the gatekeeper, the door slammer, is a woman named Nancy Luke Carpenter. And I'm very open about that. It's in my podcast, so it's not, that is her name. She was the director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau at that time, which is in the building right behind that. And she was in charge of a very sizable budget based on our tax dollars. Anyways, the more I started investigating, the more I started finding discrepancies and inconsistencies, and I started doing FOIA requests, and I started pulling documents. My government they were created by the state government. They were getting funding from a 2% tax. They were getting a portion of a 2% tax that's put on all our restaurant purchases in the town. And I'm like going. Then the more I started looking, the more I was like, "Holy cow! There's no oversight. Holy cow!" She was doing things like paying for ads so that she could get perks, and then she wouldn't tell her board that she got those perks, which is illegal. You don't do that,
right?
There's all kinds of there were all kinds of things going on, and so I just kept poking the bear, and finally the board decided they didn't need her services anymore, and she was, as my husband would say, made redundant. She was fired.
Nice. And this is what you came home to after how many years were you gone?
I've been gone roughly 40 years.
So you came back and essentially you started a podcast to expose all of this, correct?
Well, yeah, it was kind of a rage podcast.
I love that. I love that as an origin story.
Our town is called Possum Town because one of the founders looked like the Native Americans here said he looked like a possum because his face was long. He was ugly. Ichabod Crane had nothing on this guy. And so they called it Possum Town. So our mayor was in talks with some people in the community to commission a giant possum statue to be made so that they could change its clothes, and it could be like, those towns that have, salmon or artwork that's quirky. I don't know.
Right.
We were going to be known for having the world's biggest statue to a possum. We have historical places. We have people who have invented amazing things in this town, and we're going to put a bloody possum somewhere. Well, so I'm very good at Photoshop, and so some friends of mine. So we started making possum statues and photoshopping it on pictures and posting it on social media. So I put one in front of City Hall in a photo. He really got angry. And we now laugh about it. But he did. He unfriended me. He says, for my mental health, I still can't friend you. And I'm like, that's fine. I haven't asked you to be my friend. So I had T-shirts made that said unfriended by Damaya, because that's what he called himself in social media. But this is the man that runs around town with a stuffed possum on his shoulder. 2 events in this town. I can't make this up. And that is how this podcast got started. And that's what made it start to get... That's what made it go viral, essentially, because people are like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, nope, here's the picture. Here, you can follow me on Facebook. I don't care. It's an open page. This woman, after she left she went to a foundation, which runs the Tennessee Williams building. And it's harder to trace how money is spent and done because it's a 501c3. And so I started going to the organizations that were government organizations that were giving her money to follow the pennies and where they were going.
The unfortunate thing is she is in charge of this historical building.
For now.
I'm
working on it.
But they're just going to shift her. See, this is the other thing about, as I mentioned before we hit record, I used to work for the state. And I've seen these terrible people, and they just shift them from position to position because they're bullies and they're afraid to I don't know what they're afraid of.
Well, so my whole podcast, everything I do, everybody goes, oh my God, you can't say that. I'm like, why not?
Right?
What are you afraid of? I mean, I've just did an expose on a former segregationist school. That's still fairly, I mean, anybody can go there if you have money, but money is an issue. And they're charging $9,000 a year, roughly. It's $8,800 to get a public school education in a private building. I mean, the education is not any better. Half the teachers aren't even qualified to teach the subjects they're in, and they certainly don't have a bachelor's in education or a master's in education. And half of them are teaching in areas that they're not even remotely somewhat knowledgeable about.
They're just doing it for an excuse to exclude people, huh?
People go, I want to tell you this. So my phone is always blowing up. That's why I had to turn it quiet. I get messages in my Facebook. I get messages in my phone, of course, my personal and my email that says, okay, you're telling this story right now. Let me tell you my story, but you can't say it comes from me because I will lose my job. My children will be bullied by the adults at that school.
Oh my gosh.
My children will be bullied by my pastor or the adults who attend the church. Here's the problem. Everybody's afraid of something.
Mm-hmm.
And it circles back to ghost stories. I mean, I've had people try and bully me to tell me not to tell a story. And I'm like going, it's my experience, and you can't tell me what my experience is or isn't, and you can't tell me what I can and can't talk about.
You're in the South, and you explore stories, which means you've got to have some ghost stories, because I don't think you can live in the South and not have some ghost stories, especially the Deep South.
Well, I mean, I've lived in houses that have been haunted. Of course, everybody here has a ghost story in their house, and those that don't are lying.
Right.
Or not perceptive. They're just totally living in oblivion. I have a ghost in the house I live in here. Actually, I think there's two.
Really?
One's a woman, and she's in the kitchen. It's where I encounter her the most. And sometimes up here in this room. Now, this house was built higgledy-piggledy. It started in the late 1890s. It's the earliest evidence I can find. And then they added on. They had taken a summer porch and turned it into the actual kitchen. And so I have a long, narrow kitchen. But the countertops are super low because the woman who lived here was apparently very tiny. And you smell old-fashioned ladies' perfume. And I had a great aunt who used to wear a very similar scent, so I can almost recognize it. And she wafts, like she goes past you. You can tell she's been there. It's not just the scent. You can feel she's gone past you.
So do you think this is the lady that the low countertops are built for, or do you think she's from the sun porch?
I think so. And I think that was added on in the probably 1920s. And then where the master bedroom is, there was another porch. And so what is now the master bathroom was apparently a porch, and it had been closed in. But in that, what was the porch, you'll be brushing your teeth and you'll smell cigar smoke or cigarette smoke.
Ooh.
And apparently the original owners of the house, that when that porch was on off that bedroom, that was where he would sit in the evening and smoke. You only smell it. I've only smelled it in the evenings. We don't open the window in there, and I know neither of my neighbors across the way smoke. So
Yeah.
yeah, and we've had a couple of things like we'll have kitchen gadgets that disappear. For instance, we have a can opener that has gone rogue. We don't know where it is. I mean, I know I have two jerks of dogs, but they're not that smart. They don't know how to open the drawers.
Yeah.
I have a particular wine bottle cork that's made of glass that my son made, and it went missing for 2-3 weeks. And I found it in the hall bathroom, sitting on the shelf next to Epsom salts and things like that we haven't used in a while. And I'm like going, how in the? So I don't know if she's a poltergeist or what, but she didn't like that one. Dude, my son made that when he was, 15. I want it back. So that's the kind of strange stuff we've had happen here. But we've never seen it. It's all just been spectral.
You had another haunted house that
Oh,
you...
God. So I lived in a house growing up. And this house, the story to it is fabulous. So I lived in a house that was built in, I think, 1898. And the person who owned it was the public health officer, a doctor, here in town. And his offices were in the courthouse. He was a bit older than his wife. They had young children, but he was probably 50. And his children, he had some that were, ranging up and down because of that era. And his wife was a bit of a recluse. She was an agoraphobe, I think. She would go out in her garden. Her garden was exquisite in the back, but the commentary in old newspapers is she was not one to leave the house. He's at work. He's walked to work. It's a small town, like I said. He's just 4 or 5 blocks from the courthouse. Goes to his office, hot summer day. Every summer day, all the people who worked in the offices under the clock tower in this good old-fashioned southern courthouse, courthouse on the square kind of thing. They all would gather because it was a breezeway that was complete. Most old courthouses in the South at that time had almost like a cross shape so that the air could flow through them. So they all came out of their offices to shoot the shit, so to speak. And it was the sheriff, it was the doctor in charge of community health, whose house I lived in. It was the chief of police and the mayor. They're all sitting out there. And there's this cracking sound, and they look up just in time to see the clock weights fall out of the clock tower.
Oh, gosh.
Massive 2,000-pound clock weight. Strikes our hero on the head.
The doctor.
He's kind of squished. They take him out under the tree, call for another doctor, because he can't take care of himself.
Right.
A couple others are injured, maybe minor broken bones, broken arm, collarbone, that kind of stuff. But some are completely unscathed. He was pretty much gone. They take him out under one of the trees, and he dies. They pronounce him dead. Somebody, a GP or somebody shows up and goes, yeah, he's gone. He ain't here no more. Take him home, lay him out, which was traditional. He's in the front parlor.
And this is in the house that you lived in.
Yeah, so he's in the front parlor in the house that I lived in. And apparently he was much beloved, and he was well thought of, and he lays there for 3 days because it's the South. That's why we have lilies at funerals.
Right.
And is to cover that
smell.
Horrific smell.
Yeah.
So, summer day, they get him done, they carry him out, and they bury him. Fast forward, living in this house. We had multiple things, but this gentleman was a drinker. He wasn't drunk when the weight fell on him, but he was a drinker. His wife wouldn't let him in the house because she was a teetotaler. And there were nights that he would come home and he would fall asleep on a chaise lounge that was on the front porch. And the front porch was a wraparound. So my bedroom was right over that porch. So at night, I would hear somebody come up the steps onto the wooden porch. You'd hear them drop what sounds like really heavy boots. And then you'd hear our porch swing crunch and creak as if someone was lying down on it.
Ugh.
And then you would smell pipe smoke. It happened all the time, every summer. We would go outside, we would look, my mother would look out the window of my dad's study. Everything you could imagine. We would all try and catch this apparition. Never saw an apparition, but we would see the swing slowly, like someone was on it,
and they just
slowly swinging it. That's one. So we would laugh and we'd say, Dr. Halbert's home. So Dr. Halbert would come home. The other thing that would happen is you would hear the front door shut. And it had a glass. It was an old, it was the original door to the house, and it was heavy glass. And you would hear the glass rattle as the door shut. And you'd be standing there. And the door never opened and it never shut, but you would hear it. And then you'd hear someone going up the steps very slowly.
Oh, the walk of shame.
Oh, yeah.
Try not to wake the wife. Yes. Oh, my goodness. So when did he live and die, this doctor?
It was early 1900s. I'm pretty sure he had served in the Civil War or he had served in Reconstruction. The wife ends up staying in the house, and she, like I said, she was a recluse. At the top of the staircase was a short piece of banister. Here's my hand going out like this. And it looked down to the bottom of the stairwell, and you could see down toward the front door. You could see very definite hand marks that had been worn down. The wood was physically worn, and it was 4 fingers worth on each. They were very grooved, very specific. I met eventually one of her descendants, and this woman was very meticulous. But I met one of her descendants. I think it was her granddaughter. I don't think it was a niece. I think it was a granddaughter. And she said that she got to her agoraphobia got so bad that she would stand upstairs and wring her hands because she was she knew her husband was dead, but she was watching for him to come back. And there was a tiny kitchen that was put in upstairs.
So that she wouldn't have to go down the stairs.
So she wouldn't have to go downstairs. The other thing that was interesting, okay, now this is funny. So when we moved into the house, under the staircase was a closet full of her beautiful hats, her gloves, and all of her journals. And her journals were to everything she had planted in that garden over about a 50 or 60 year spread. I mean, it was very detailed. She had seed samples taped on, and it was fabulous. So my mother, to honor this woman, my mother loves to garden. She went outside, and my mother's cleaned out every flower bed. My mom's like, oh, and there's this, and I've got her books, and this is what she planted here, and this is what she planted here. And look at this gorgeous plant. And it was behind like an azalea. And my father goes back there and he goes, Pat, what in the heck? And she's like, I know, isn't it gorgeous? He goes, don't you know what that is? And she's like, no. She goes, well, let me look at her book. It says it's hemp. My mother was growing pot plants. Well, across the street lived the sheriff.
But it's such a pretty plant.
It was gorgeous. That house had several ghosts. One of the ones that I think is really fascinating is actually one that was on the street. I've experienced 2 ghosts that have to do with the street. My father and I, it's an old house. Something was always being fixed. My dad was trying to replace all the lead pipes that brought in the water in the house or took it out. And so we were under this giant ceramic double sink, those massive with the big sideboard on it. They probably weigh 1,000 pounds. And Daddy's underneath. He's trying to replace this piece of pipe. He's under there, and I'm handing him stuff. And I think I was 10 at the time. And I'm on my heels, sitting on the floor, waiting for him to ask for the next item. And both of us hear a voice that was very similar to mine. It was a Southern child say, Daddy, Daddy, the watermelon man is here.
Watermelon man?
Well, there was this old man who drove a wagon in our town with a team of mules in my childhood, who brought in his green stuff that he grew on his truck patch farm on the edge of town. And he sold watermelons and cantaloupes in the summertime, and in the fall he sold turnip greens and turnips and vegetables and stuff like that. So my dad's like going, he calls my name, get in here. And I said, I am here. I was literally, I could touch him. And he goes, that wasn't you? And I said, no. My sister's 5 years older and has a very distinctly different voice. He crawls out from under, tries not to hit his head, and we both go looking. We're headed through this butler's pantry that took you into the dining room. We hear it again. Daddy, 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 the watermelon man is here. The voice was coming from the dining room.
Ooh.
So we go from the butler's pantry into the dining room, and there's nobody there. So he goes through the dining room into the living room, and I go from the dining room into the hall, trying to see who's in our house. And we hear a wagon with trace chains, and the man who had been selling watermelon in our town for a bazillion years in this old creaky buckboard wagon comes down the road. He is the watermelon man. He's been called that apparently at that point. This is like 1972, 73. He's been called this, and his father was before him. I actually interviewed him years later. He and his father had been bringing produce and going through the neighborhoods since the 1920s. And then we had a dog, the ghost of a dog in the house.
Really?
And you'd hear it whine and cry. And
Did you have a dog at the
Nope.
time?
we could hear it under our house. We had a basement in the house. So Daddy went under there. We looked everywhere. Nothing. And then years later, about 2 years later, we were upstairs at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, putting in insulation because our house didn't have insulation on in the roof. And so my father decided it would be brilliant to put insulation in our house in like August July and August in Mississippi with its.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had to get up at 2 a.m. to start putting insulation so that we'd be out of there by 5 a.m. before it was too hot. And we were up there one day and we could hear it sounded like it was like he would move around in the attic and he was like looking for this dog. He's like, how there wouldn't be a dog. We knew it just wasn't logical. And it was just the strangest thing. So then we found out, I think I was in high school when I found this out. I was doing some research for a project in the library. And I came across the woman who had lived in our house. I'd come across her, some of her diaries and stuff. I don't know if the family donated them or I don't know how they got them because I don't remember ever seeing them in our house. And apparently when the husband died and they laid him out, his hat and his coat were left on a chair in the dining room. And the story in her journal or diary was that the dog had taken the man's coat and had drug it down into the basement, and the dog would go down there every day and cry. And I was like, oh my God, that's that dog we heard. Because it was crying. It wasn't barking. It wasn't howling. It was always crying.
Oh.
You could hear it. And I thought, oh my, that's what we were hearing all these years. And my family, I went back and I was like, look what I found. And my family was like, oh my God, that's the dog.
So the doctor and his dog are still
In the house.
in the house. Wow, the dog stayed with him.
How can you reunite the dog with the doctor?
I don't know. So my family sold that house in the mid-70s sometimes. My parents renovated it and sold it. There's a family that's been in there since. They bought it from us. I've talked to the grandkids that are my children's age, and they were like, oh yeah, we've heard the dog.
So the dog's still there. Oh my gosh.
The dog's still there. And they smell this, they smell the pipe smoke and the cigar smoke. And yeah, I'm like, I didn't make it up. I swear. They're like, no, we've heard it too. They used to tell about, they would have seances and their grandmother would get so mad at them. They're like, don't stir it up. We like living here. Apparently the man haunts he did until they renovated it. For years, he haunted the walkway where he was killed.
Oh, in the Capitol courthouse.
Yeah, and I've had multiple people who worked in the courthouse before it was renovated tell me about that. I've had some bailiffs and I had a former judge tell me that story. He wore like a bowler hat. I guess he was tall and lanky, and he had a very distinctive gait. And so people talked about for years, oh, there goes Doc.
So they would see him. They would
Yeah.
actually see him.
Isn't that weird?
Creepy.
That he could haunt two places, that his spirit, his essence.
Or he was at the courthouse and then he would come home.
Maybe. Wonder if he went
his
by,
wife wouldn't let him
the
in.
pub on his way home.
Yeah, so both of those, since they took place in completely different areas with the same suspected culprit, and since they seem to be pretty much exactly the same experience over a course of many, many decades, it sounds like those are more of a residual haunting, like maybe the theory that things get recorded from the past and bleed through or recur. Was there any evidence of an intelligent haunting in that house where you said something and then immediately got a response?
The daddy, daddy, daddy.
Like I said, only the child. We never heard it again, the child one.
There was never like you could ask them a question and they would respond back or anything like that?
No, but I have been in another house where that did happen. So, the lady I told you about that was on the porch that the lady wouldn't let me talk to. Okay.
Yes.
The woman who was our family friend, her husband was our swim coach. He was a high school teacher, and she was an educator as well. They had a beautiful antebellum home that's 3-4 story. I don't know. There was a wee room up on the top. Our town has something called pilgrimage every year where people who have these beautiful homes, will open their homes for a tour. And it's been going on since the 1930s. And the ladies dress in the hoop skirts and the men dress in morning wear. And then you have the oddball one that'll decide to dress as a Confederate officer. Yeah, we have a few, but mostly it is what it is. But these people have done a lot of research on their homes. And some of the homes, one or two of them have been in the same families for many years. But this home during pilgrimage one year, because I'm brilliant this way, I decided to bring an Ouija board and take it upstairs.
Oh, yay!
So we go upstairs to the top smallest room that apparently the daughters of the builders had stayed in. Apparently the girls like to be in this room. That's the story we were told. So now, brilliant me, and I'm probably, I think I'm 13 at the time. 13. So I go upstairs, I've got the Ouija board, and I've conned my sister, who's 5 years older and should be wiser and know better. But we were ghost hunters of the first kind. We've hunted ghosts all over this town for years. At that point, we had been exploring everything, right?
Uh-huh.
Really, clearly, there wasn't much to do in this town. I've got the Ouija board. I've trucked it up under my arm. There's 4 girls, and we're all sitting around the floor, and we've all got our hands on the Ouija board, and we start asking questions. So we ask, who's there? And they name one of the girls that lived in that house. And I can't remember her name now. Let's just say it's Beth. We start asking questions, and the door slams shut. Person spooks us. And we're all like, ah, screaming. And so we're like, did you close the door? Yes. So we're all going, did you pull on the Ouija? Like, no. We're all scared. So I asked, if you're there, move something in the room. There was a little bitty flower vase that was a little cut glass flower vase sitting on like a high boy dresser, real tall dresser, and it moves from one side of the dresser to the other.
Whoa!
Now one of the girls bails.
Yeah.
It's just the 3 of us, and we're all 3 thick as thieves. One of them's my sister, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like going, if you leave, I'm leaving, but I'm not leaving. And she's like, well, I can't leave you. My mother will kill me. So we stayed. And finally, through all our, I think we just tired the entity out because we were preteens and teens. And it said, get out. And my sister had said, did you just ask us to leave? And it said, out now. That was it. We left. And I threw the Ouija board away in the garbage.
Oh, no.
That was the end of that. That's the only time I've ever had one talk to me. But now as an adult, I've gone out to graveyards and I've taken equipment out there and things like that. And I have gotten responses. That's a totally different game.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've gotten EVPs that you've recorded and things like that.
Yeah. I've done quite a bit of EVP work in one of our local cemeteries, and I want to go out and do another one.
We have time for maybe one more story. Would you like to tell us about one of those EVP sessions?
Well, it could, or I could tell you about the Civil War soldier on a horse. Which would you rather have?
Let's hear that guy. Let's hear about that guy.
Okay, there's a house here in town called Wisteria Place. Wisteria Place was owned by a man named Mr. Cannon, and one of the sons goes off to the Civil War. I think his name was Thomas. Thomas is wounded horribly, but Thomas went to war with one of the men from his manservant, an enslaved man, went to war with him to care for his horse. And so when Thomas was horribly wounded, his manservant is said to have brought him home. He on the horse, and he walks the man back from wherever he was injured. Now, I don't know this story at that time. I'm at the house that I did the Ouija board thing on. It is in the backyard of Mr. Cannon's home. They're back to back to each other. It is the summer that I was living in that home because my mother was ill, and I would go out on the front porch because it was very hot. Most of our homes were not air conditioned in the 70s in Mississippi. And so it was a hot day. You just got up early and did stuff. So I would get up really early, and I know I was reading on the porch that day, and I was curled up on a big wicker piece of furniture. And it was foggy out. It was really, that low ground fog. And I hear, just over the hill and down, I hear a horse. I mean, it's spluttering. It's clearly a horse. I'm like going, what in the heck? Who's got a horse coming up the road? They're going to get hit by a car in this fog. And I hear it, and then I can hear it clumping, and it's coming closer. And then I can hear somebody's footsteps, but mostly I can hear the horse. So now I've put my book down and I'm really curious. And so I go stand on the end of the porch and I'm looking toward Wisteria Place, the back of Wisteria Place, and the road goes right beside it. So I'm looking up the road. Sure enough, a head of a horse starts coming out of the fog. I thought it had a blaze of white. It was dark. It was like a, reddish brown. And I'm thinking, that's a horse. And then I see and I hear a man talking to the horse. And it's an African-American guy. And he's pretty thin and he's pretty tall. And he's got his hand up on the bridle. And he's holding a piece of a rein. Not both sides. He's holding a piece of a rein. Just one side. And he starts appearing out of the fog. But you can't see the middle of the man, and you can only see his head and the horse head. And then out of the fog, you see the pommel and the back of the neck of the horse, and you see a man. It looks like he's laying over the pommel, another man, and he's laying across this horse's neck. And then as he gets closer, he goes to pull into what's the back driveway, which led to at one point, which was where the old carriage house used to sit before the current people had a swimming pool put in. He pulls in, and the fog is now not over that part of the yard, really, not so much. And I see the top of the horse, and he disappears. He disappeared. He was gone. The sound went away. Gone. So I go running down the path. I jump off the porch, I run down the path, I run along the side of those people's driveway, and I go into the driveway. There ain't no horse. There ain't no man. There ain't no man on the back of a horse who's clearly sick or injured or asleep or dead. There's nobody there. And so I asked Mrs. Wallace, the woman who owned Wisteria Place. She was a teacher at the high school. And I asked her, I said, did that happen? And she goes, oh, we think that's Mr. Cannon's son.
So people have seen this before.
Yeah,
it was
just
don't talk about
happens
it.
Every now and then.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, I know that ghost.
But they also have a ghost that comes down their staircase in a peignoir. I mean, it's like, yeah. Oh, and there was a duel outside. Every now and then we hear a shot fired. I'm like, well, today we do hear shots fired. But that's, back then we did. These people are like, yeah, that's, we think that's Thomas. Like,
oh my goodness.
Thomas.
So a known haunting of a known person. Everybody in town just says, yep, that's Thomas.
It's Thomas.
Coming home.
But you had never heard or seen of this before, and you actually saw it with your own eyes. And in true Southern fashion, not only was everybody aware of these things, but you weren't scared. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I want to see this. Very curious.
Let me run after that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just this gothic way we live, I guess.
Oh, I love it. Well, Shannon, your stories are truly remarkable, and you are such an amazing storyteller. This has been a delight to listen to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, your podcast is, I have to say it slowly, Tombigbee Tales. You can be found on YouTube and on all podcast platforms.
I'm completely transparent. I love what I do, and I love hearing the stories. I love sharing the stories. Thank you for having me as a guest. This has been, I feel like we could all just sit down and have a glass of wine and get in a lot of trouble together.
Oh, yes.
That sounds like fun. Well, forever in your neck of the woods, we'll definitely let you know.
Hainted Loves, what do you think? If you were in one of these houses, would you be still doing the seance after the vase moves across the table and the door slams? Well, the Possum Town Whistleblower would do it because she's not afraid of a spooky day.
Homespun Haints is hosted by Becky Kielimnik and Diana Doty, and produced by Homespun Haints Media LLC. Editing and music by Becky Kielimnik. Show notes by Diana Doty. If you have a ghost story and you'd like to be considered as a guest for this podcast, please visit our website at homespunhaints.com/submit.